Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into AI policy in China today, specifically how this new AI model called DeepSeek is kind of shaking things up.
Yeah, it's been pretty wild to see, actually.
We've got some articles here from Chinese state media,
Uh-huh.
People's Daily, People's Net, and then some analysis from Science and Technology Review to kind of round things out.
Awesome.
So let's jump right in. DeepSeek, big story. Kind of a David and Goliath situation, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is challenging a lot of those long-held assumptions about AI.
Okay, so assumptions like what?
Well, the big one is this idea of scaling law, you know?
Fill me in. I'm not an AI expert.
Basically, it's this idea that the bigger the model, the better, right? Like, the more parameters it has, the more powerful it's going to be. So companies like NVIDIA, who make the hardware for those huge models, they've been like the kings of the hill. But DeepSeek's coming in and saying, hold on, maybe size isn't everything.
Interesting. So they're focusing on something else.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Efficiency, innovative architecture.
So better results with less.
That's the idea. And it's making people nervous, let me tell you. I mean, look at what happened to NVIDIA's stock when DeepSeek appeared on the scene.
Yeah, that was a big drop, wasn't it? Like 17% in one day.
Uh-huh. A $589 billion loss? You don't see that every day.
That's a statement, for sure. It seems like DeepSeek is more than just some cool tech. It's a signal, right? Like, China's ready to play ball in the big leagues of AI.
Oh, absolutely. And the wild part. Big tech companies in the West, Microsoft, Amazon, they're starting to use it, even though their own governments might not be thrilled about it.
I guess they see the potential, huh? So let's break it down a bit. What actually makes DeepSeek tick? What's under the hood, so to speak?
Well, they're using some pretty cool stuff. There's this MOE architecture, mixture of experts. It basically lets the model use different parts of itself for different tasks, which makes it super efficient.
Gotcha. Like a Swiss Army knife of AI.
Yeah, kind of. Then there's the MLA attention mechanism, helps it zero in on the important information. And they've got this new training technique called GRPO, which is all about optimizing the learning process. But honestly, what might be the biggest deal of all? DeepSeek's open source.
Yeah, that's interesting. Why would they do that? Make such powerful technology available to anyone. Seems risky.
It's a strategic move, for sure. It makes this technology accessible to everyone, everywhere. Could really shake up who has power in the AI world.
I see. So if more people have access to this kind of tech, it changes the game.
It could. More developers, more companies, all able to get their hands on this cutting-edge AI, especially those who've been hesitant to share their data with the big tech companies, for privacy reasons. This could be a game changer.
That makes sense. Speaking of changing the game, it seems like DeepSeek is part of a larger shift in China's approach to AI, right?
Definitely. And to understand that shift, we've got to look at their overall AI strategy. These articles we have from Chinese state media, People's Daily, People's Net, they're pretty illuminating.
Okay, so what are they saying?
Well, they're both making it clear that AI is a top priority for China, like essential for their economic growth, national security, even their ambitions to be a global leader in tech.
So it's about more than just, being the best.
It seems that way, yeah. What's interesting is that they also acknowledge they've got some work to do to catch up in the AI race.
So they're being realistic about where they stand.
Yeah, it seems so. They know they have strengths like strong government support, tons of data, a massive domestic market for AI, but they're not shying away from their weaknesses either.
Like what? Where do they need to improve?
Well, they admit they need to step up their game in theoretical research and computing power, for example, and that's why they're taking this multi-pronged approach to AI development.
Okay, break it down for me. What does that look like in practice? What are they actually doing?
Well, they're pouring money into key technology research, building this nationwide computing power network, and really pushing for a strong open-source AI ecosystem.
Sounds ambitious.
It is, and they're not just focused on the tech itself, they're also looking at developing AI applications that benefit society and figuring out how to govern AI ethically and responsibly.
Wow. It's a pretty comprehensive strategy. And it seems like DeepSeek fits right into it, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. It embodies this shift away from bigger is better to focus on efficiency, accessibility, and this more collaborative approach, especially with the open source model.
So China's really challenging the traditional assumptions about AI and carving out their own path, huh?
Yeah, and they seem to be very aware of their strengths and weaknesses as they're doing it. It's a strategic play, that's for sure.
Makes you wonder how this is going to shake things up in the long run.
It really does, and it brings up another fascinating point. There's this growing discussion about the limitations of the scaling law itself.
Mm.
Like, is making models bigger and bigger really the only way forward?
So some experts are saying, hold on, there might be other ways.
Exactly. People like Li Guojie, Richard Sutton, they're starting to question that assumption, saying maybe we need to pay more attention to algorithm optimization, making things more energy efficient.
I see. So it's not just about raw power, but being smarter about how we use it.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot between general AI that can do a bunch of different things and specialized AI that's really good at one specific thing.
So where does DeepSeek fall on that spectrum?
That's what's interesting. It's not trying to create this one giant AI that knows everything, like some companies are trying to do with this distillation approach.
Distillation? What's that?
Imagine you're trying to create a master chef. One way would be to teach one person every single cuisine in the world.
Okay, I get it. One giant brain for everything.
Right. But DeepSeek's doing something different. It's more like putting together a team of specialist chefs, each one a master in their own area. They're all about integrating those specialized models into a more generalized system.
So like a network of expert brains working together instead of one massive one.
Exactly. And that raises some really interesting questions about data privacy and control of AI, especially with the whole open source aspect.
Yeah, that's a big one. And we're going to get into all that right after a quick break. So stick around. We'll be right back to continue our deep dive. Okay, so we're back and ready to keep digging into this whole DeepSeek thing. Before the break, we were talking about the open source model and how that ties into data privacy, which is a big concern these days.
It's huge. And that's one of the areas where DeepSeek could really shake things up.
So how so?
Well, think about it. A lot of companies, especially smaller ones, they're kind of wary of these big AI platforms, right? They don't necessarily want to hand over all their data.
Yeah, makes sense. Data leaks, all that.
Exactly. It's a big risk. But with open source, you have more control. You know what's happening with your data, how it's being used. So DeepSeek could be really appealing for those companies who are worried about privacy.
So it's like a more democratic approach to AI?
Yeah, you could say that. It could lead to a more diverse AI ecosystem where innovation isn't just happening in a few big tech companies. And this could be especially big for developing countries.
How so?
Well, they haven't always had the resources to compete with the big players, right? But open source levels the playing field, gives them access to this cutting-edge tech.
That's a pretty powerful idea. And it seems like a totally different approach than what we're seeing in some other countries like the US, where there's been a lot of talk about regulating AI, maybe even restricting access to certain technologies.
It's almost like two different philosophies, isn't it? Open collaboration versus control and dominance. It's going to be interesting to see which one wins out.
Definitely. But let's shift gears for a minute and talk about the people behind all of this. We've talked about the tech, the strategy, but what about the talent driving China's AI ambitions?
That's a crucial part of the story. There's been a lot of back and forth about whether China really has what it takes to lead in AI, Some folks in the West have their doubts, pointing to the fact that the U.S. has historically been ahead in fundamental research.
Right, but earlier you mentioned that China's aware of that gap.
Mm-hmm.
Are they doing anything to address it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They're investing heavily in education and training. They're trying to attract top talent from all over the world. And people like Li Guojie, who's a big name in Chinese AI, he keeps emphasizing the importance of nurturing young talent. He sees that as key to becoming a leader in AI.
And we're seeing that play out in companies like DeepSeek, right? Like their approach to hiring.
Absolutely. They're not just going after the folks with years of experience. They're looking for young, hungry graduates, researchers who are eager to learn and shake things up. They're building a culture that values fresh perspectives and fast learning.
So it's not just about getting the talent that's already out there. It's about building the next generation of AI experts.
Exactly. And that goes hand in hand with this idea of building a self-sufficient AI ecosystem. They don't want to just rely on Western tech, They want to build their own solutions, their own platform.
Like what kind of things are they doing to become more self-sufficient?
One example is they're working on a Chinese alternative to CUA, which is NVIDIA's platform for AI software. Right now, it's the dominant platform, but China wants to have its own option.
So they're really thinking long-term, building up the infrastructure, the talent pipeline. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just happening at the government level either. There's a real entrepreneurial spirit driving innovation all across China.
You're talking about all those AI startups that have been popping up.
Yeah, exactly. Companies like the Six Dragons of Hangzhou, these 6 AI startups based in Hangzhou, they're attracting tons of investment, developing some really cool solutions. And then there's all these Chinese AI unicorn startups worth over $1 billion. They're everywhere.
Sounds like there's a lot of energy in China's AI scene right now.
Oh, yeah, tons of energy. There's this feeling that China's not content to just follow anymore. They're blazing their own trail.
It's pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah.
But it also makes you wonder what this means for the future of AI globally. Like, how is this shift in power going to play out?
It's a big question. I mean, it's pretty clear that we're seeing a major power shift, the old guards being challenged in a big way.
And the open source nature of DeepSeek just adds another layer of complexity.
For sure. It raises some really crucial questions, like, what happens if open source becomes the main way AI is developed? How does that change the balance of power? How are countries like the US going to react to China's growing influence in AI?
These are tough questions. I don't think anyone has the answers yet. But one thing's for sure, we're in uncharted territory. This is a whole new era for AI.
It really is, and it's going to be fascinating to see what happens next.
Definitely. All right, well, I think we need to take a quick pause to let all of this sink in. When we come back, I'd love to hear your final thoughts on where all of this is headed and what we should be paying attention to as this story continues to unfold. Okay, we're back. So, after this whirlwind tour of China's AI landscape, what are your big takeaways? What should our listeners really be thinking about going forward?
I think the big thing here is DeepSeek is more than just a tech thing. It's like a statement, right?
Yeah, it really feels like China's putting a stake in the ground saying, hey, we're serious about AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're not just playing catch-up anymore. They're finding their own way, doing things differently.
We talked about how they're leveraging their strengths. Government support, tons of data, a huge market, but are also being smart about their weaknesses, investing in research, talent development, and this whole open source thing. That's a big deal.
Yeah, no one really knows how that's going to play out in the long run, but it's definitely shaking things up. Like, what if open source becomes the dominant model for AI?
Right. It could completely change how AI is developed, who has access to it, who controls it. Big questions, no easy answers.
Nope. But that's what makes it so fascinating, right? It's a whole new era for AI, and we're right in the middle of it.
So any parting thoughts for our listeners as they continue to explore this topic?
I'd say keep your eye on China. This isn't just about technology, it's about global power dynamics. AI is going to be a major factor in how the world unfolds in the coming years, and China is determined to be a leader.
And that brings up the whole ethical side of things too, right? As AI gets more powerful, we need to be thinking about how to use it responsibly, how to make sure it benefits everyone.
Absolutely. That's a conversation we all need to be part of. The future of AI is being written right now, and it's up to all of us to make sure it's a good one.
Well said. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It's been an eye-opening look at the evolving world of AI.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk AI.
And for our listeners, stay curious, keep learning, and remember, when it comes to AI, things are changing fast. We'll be back soon to explore more fascinating developments in this ever-changing world. Until then, thanks for listening.